We now go forward to our next session, and probably this would be one of the most interesting sessions of the day, coming from Hyperledger. And to do the session on leveraging blockchain technology for business, we have Marta Piekarska Geater. I hope I pronounced your name right. Yeah.
Yep, good job.
Yes, thank you so much. So, a brief introduction. Marta is the director of ecosystem at Hyperledger, and she has studied in Warsaw and Berlin, obtaining a double master's and a PhD in computer science. Her professional career started with security and privacy in the telecom space. Uh, as part of her role in Hyperledger, Martha evangelizes technology and open source at conferences around the world and helps enterprises with applying permission blockchains to their use cases. So, ladies and gentlemen, please show your love. Please show those like buttons. Keep pressing them and give a warm applause to Martha. Martha, please, you can take the stage now. Thank you.
Thank you. I love the like button. It's almost like clapping, just without the clapping. It's cool. Hello, everybody. I will share my screen, so I think then you won't really see my face, but that's how I look. I am director of ecosystem for Hyperledger, as was introduced, and I've been with the company actually for a very long time, almost since it started. So I am quite proud. And the role, quite often people ask me, what is director of ecosystem? My role is basically to connect people and to talk about Hyperledger and to make sure that our members, and I'll talk a bit more about what it means to be a member. For our members to kind of understand how they are using the technology and help them with evaluating the process of creating new use cases, introducing them to right people. And then on the other hand, as an ex-academic, I also run the academic program within Hyperledger, where we are trying to build collaboration with universities and find people that are doing research on Hyperledger so that we can pick and promote it as well. So what is Hyperledger? Hyperledger is an open source collaborative effort to advance cross-industry blockchain technologies. And we are hosted by the Linux Foundation. So we've been created 4 years ago to answer the question, how should the global industry and businesses, how should they react to the Bitcoin boom? We are 100% open source, so nothing in Hyperledger is pay to play. The technical community is welcoming everybody, no matter if you're a very advanced developer or a person who doesn't know how to code at all, but just wants to be involved with technology, is interested. You can participate in Hyperledger efforts as well as any other Linux Foundation efforts as an individual or an employee of a company that is not a member, or as a member company. We say that we are a duocracy, which means that if the ones who do have the loudest voice. It doesn't matter if you represent, the British Queen, or you are the British Queen. If you're not contributing to Hyperledger, you have no voice whatsoever. If you are contributing in terms of code, in terms of brainstorming and creating new features, working with special interest groups, all of those mean that you're much more likely to be heard and to be considered a leader. And we have kind of three arms to Hyperledger. So we have the tools. This is what the Linux Foundation kind of provides. All the software is under Apache 2.0 license. We have a common IP framework and collaboration tools, all of that we provide, and we provide the promotion and branding, as well as security processes. So while our staff doesn't develop code, we do analyze the code and make sure that when we produce something and we say that it's production ready, it actually is safe and secure. Then we have the team of developer volunteers, which are building the code, and that is everybody around the world. Most of them are unknown to us because they often like to contribute anonymously, and also we have the people that are using Hyperledger code bases, even if we don't know about them. And we try to track all the projects that are being built with Hyperledger, but I'm almost certain that there's at least one project that you know about that I have no clue about, because it's developed in Jakarta, and nobody, I haven't heard from those people, and we haven't tracked them because we don't track who downloads the code. And then there is the infrastructure from Linux Foundation, which is the executive director and the business operations and so on and so forth. So Hyperledger staff effectively. Our goals are very simple. We want to help create enterprise-grade software and provide community-driven infrastructures that are in these communities to be technical. But our big part of it is building an ecosystem that is diverse, that is inclusive. Our main kind of tagline is everyone's welcome here, and we truly believe in that. This month in Hyperledger is actually the Diversity, Civility, and Inclusion Month, where we are promoting all sort of diversity within Hyperledger community and blockchain space in general. We want to educate the public about the technology, but we also want to bring people who are not technical and let them kind of get more friendly and accustomed with technology and see that it's not scary in any way. Hyperledger is really your choose your own adventure. You can contribute code, of course. You can start fixing the bugs or finding a contributor guide and building features. You can help us writing blog posts, documentation, all sort of featured articles, things that will help to promote the goals of Hyperledger. And then you can participate in meetings. If you don't feel comfortable with sharing your knowledge yet, if you think that you need to get to that point, we have loads of meetings. There are the project meetings, which are focused really on the roadmap and features that will be built, as well as we have special interest in working groups, which are focused on either vertical, for instance, healthcare or supply chain or trade finance, or on the specific aspect of the technology, like architecture or performance and scalability. So as I mentioned, we've been launched 4 years ago, and we grew quite a bit. When I first started, we had 5 projects. Today, we have 16. They are divided between libraries, tools, and distributed ledgers. We have 3 production releases. One of them is actually in version 2.0 that will be Hyperledger Fabric. We are 100% global. We have loads of participants from around the world. We have active community and working groups that I mentioned, and we have meetups worldwide. As a matter of fact, we have a very big community in APAC. So I'm not sure if there is a meetup in Jakarta, but I'm very sure that there is one somewhere around you. We were very proud to be named one of the top projects within the Blockchain 50. Blockchain 50 is an initiative driven by Forbes, and for the last 2 or 3 years, I think, where they evaluate the most interesting projects and the most promising projects in the blockchain space. Out of 50, 52%, so over half of projects, are using Hyperledger DLTs, either Sawtooth, Fabric, Indy, one even using Grid, which is our very new and very fresh project. And these companies that are building with Hyperledger are both small startups, but also very big names. And, half of those companies are not Hyperledger member at all, but they still are believing in the technology and want to build on it. Hyperledger embraces a full spectrum of industry use cases, and especially enterprise scenarios with widely varied requirements for decentralization, trust, continuity, and confirmation time. All of those represent a potentially unique optimization point for the technology. Instead of diving deeper into, different aspects of Hyperledger or telling you more about frameworks and tools, you can read all of that online, and I'm happy to also introduce that in Q&A. But I want to talk about what is really built with Hyperledger? What are the real use cases? Because I think we're all hungry for that. So, first one is our Honeywell Aerospace case study. We've just released a full case study. You can go online and read about it. What they are doing is they took the aerospace marketplace, which was very manual and very labor intensive. When you wanted to order a part for an airplane, it would take months at a time sometimes to identify a part that is reusable. So you don't necessarily want just new parts. You quite often want parts from airplanes or aircrafts that are no longer in use, but parts of it are still very useful. So you would have to identify it. You would have to verify that it's actually it was well maintained, that it has all the certification. You have to know where it is. And that's basically run within phone calls, emails, and paper books and paper ledgers, which is insane. So with what Honeywell did is they basically created an Amazon or eBay for aircraft parts. This means that the industry that used to 4 billion industry, where only 2.5% of all transactions were done online, is moving now fully digital. And the faster you can service a plane, the more money it will, the less money you'll lose or the more money you'll be earning. Every minute of an aircraft standing and not flying incurs incredible costs for the company. Another very interesting is the Chainyard. Chainyard has developed a Trust Your Supplier case study or use case, which they developed together with IBM. And they streamlining the slow process of onboarding business-to-business suppliers with Hyperledger Fabric. The results are pretty incredible. The vendor onboarding cycle time cut from 60 days to 3. And that means 50% less costs for the buyers to verify and maintain the supplier's information, and for seller, faster time to first sale. You can actually read the case study which we publish now, as well as watch a webinar that we've done. And I highly recommend that you check out our webinar series. These webinars happen twice a month, on every first and third Wednesday of the month, and are recorded as well. So you can go to our webinar library and just rewatch them. And it's a great way to understand and deeper dive into the case studies and ask questions. You can always email us and ask questions, and we will pass it over to the presenters. Another exciting case study or implementation is done by the government of British Columbia. The org book that they have created is fully in production. If you go to orgbook.gov.ca, you will find an actual inventory of all companies that are registered within the British Columbia. And you can see all the data about it, all the information, who founded it, how many clients it has, all sort of information that you might need as a potential business partner. You need to trust the other party, but normally you just trust them because they seem kind of okay. Maybe you will go to the government and see the registry, check the registry, but that's very labor intensive. So here you can just check it online, type in the name of a company, and it pops up. Trust me, I checked it, it works. First demonstration actually of the org book project was announced in January 2019. And for a while they were running in parallel the traditional registry and the blockchain one. And now they simply just moved to the blockchain one. The digital IDs they have digital IDs of 500 to 29,000 companies and 1.4 million credentials. This is built with Hyperledger Indy, which is an distributed ledger technology that allows you to build identities rooted on the blockchain, not the identity itself living on a blockchain. The identity lives off blockchain, but it is rooted on a blockchain. Again, you can read the case study that we have. CU Ledger is done with Hyperledger Indy, and this is a very interesting process, or um, again, an identity system for a customer-focused global digital identity solution. It includes credit unions, and it helps for to onboard and run KYC in a very fast way. It enables cross-border payments, shared benchmarking, branching, and cardless ATM systems. It is a much bigger system than just this MyCUID, but MyCUID is the blockchain part of it. ScanTrust, on the other hand, has been working, gosh, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years now, on a QR code technology, a very unique QR code technology that is unclonable and which can be applied to any kind of packaging. Thanks to it, and thanks to connecting that QR code to a place on the blockchain where that product or that package is registered, you can very well track the whole supply chain. Their first use case was, or first POC was done with Colombian coffee. Second one was pork supply chain. Provenance of pork is quite important. As you know, there are various information that you need to know about pork, which might be polluted, and many countries ends up being polluted in some way. You want to know the meat processing, not only because you care about animal welfare, but because you actually, the producer itself wants to know the lot number, the shipment details, and the processing dates. It is important to analyze the shipment details, because with perishable items, as like food, if they are transported in a wrong way, it will mean that the food will spoil and the whole line will be completely destroyed. And customers just want to know what is happening. In addition to that, Knorr is now, because they did it with Unilever, which owns Knorr. I'm sure you all tried Knorr soups at some point in your life. So the Knorr is now able to also introduce better loyalty programs and also track their own food. And as a matter of fact, it turns out that they were able to identify very serious issues with their supply chain, thanks to the fact that they were the solution was allowing them to track every single package of their soups. Blockchain Technologies Partner, again, actually the last two, so also the ScanTrust presentation and Blockchain Technology Partners also did a webinar. So if you're interested in learning more, please go to our webinar library. They have created, together with Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, a securities lending platform. The reason for it was that in Israel, the securities lending is fragmented, inefficient, and opaque. And Tel Aviv Stock Exchange saw this as an opportunity to really innovate. Their blockchain securities lending platform is built on Hyperledger Sawtooth and enables peer-to-peer lending while supporting a wide range of contracts. It's creating a liquid market for all securities lending activities. It supports various languages, actually, so you can use traditional Ethereum smart contracts. You can also use DAML, which is distributed. I don't remember how it expresses itself. It's a language that has been introduced by digital assets, and then BTP Sextant was chosen to deploy and manage this platform, which is Sextant is built based on Hyperledger Sawtooth. Recently, we've introduced Trust over IP, which is another foundation within the Linux Foundation. So it's not a project within Hyperledger, but it actually grew out of Hyperledger. We've seen so much interest in governance and in identity that we realized that it's no longer just a matter of developing a code. We need a foundation, a space to define complete architecture for internet scale digital trust that combines both the cryptographic trust and the machine layer, as well as the human trust at the business level, legal and social layers. So it's basically cutting through each layer and defining what it means and how do you build trust in this global internet world. I am very excited about this project. We will be very closely working with it because it will this foundation will complement a lot of what Hyperledger is doing in the digital identity space with Hyperledger Indy, Aries, and Ursa. Another thing that we've added recently is we've added Hyperledger Avalon and Cactus, as well as released several new features. Several new versions of Hyperledger DLTs. This is how our greenhouse looks like, because I mentioned, here a couple of names, and I wanted you to take a look. We call it a greenhouse because anybody can come with a seed of their idea and plant it in our greenhouse. And if the community wants to foster it and feed it code, then it'll bloom into a beautiful tree, and we will all benefit from its fruits. And if not, then the plant will die, and that's also okay. So I mentioned that, and because we are slightly out of time, as I'm seeing, I will jump through those things. You will have the slides, so you can read through what I provided here. Hyperledger Avalon is one of our expressions of really being involved with security. We have Hyperledger Ursa, and we also implemented the Trusted Computing specification published by Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, and this is implemented as Hyperledger Avalon. Hyperledger Cactus is our latest project, and it is our pluggable and interoperable project. It's an SDK designed and architected to help maximize the pluggability so that anyone who is wishing to use it can connect any DLT to others by implementing a simple plugin. So it's kind of, building this world or connecting all of this massive world of DLTs, no matter if it's Hyperledger DLT or not, together to be much more reusable. And currently it's supporting Besu, Fabric, Corda, and Quorum. So as you can see, not only our projects. We have Hyperledger Labs. If you're interested, it's basically our R&D center. So some really cool new projects are going there. If you want to listen more about what Hyperledger has been doing, we've had our Hyperledger Global Forum, and all the sessions have been recorded. So as you can see, we produce a lot of video content. We believe that this is a great way to share information. You can check out our YouTube channel and see how, see what has been happening there. We are looking at COVID-19 resources and collecting the known blockchain initiatives. We are trying to find funding opportunities that are not Linux relating and do some matchmaking. If you want to learn more and if you want to actually become a professionally certified developer or administrator, we have official certification. I believe the code actually is still working, so you can use anywhere 30 to have a 30% discount on all the online courses. We are trying to embrace the fact that many people have now much more time and want to learn more. I actually took up an MBA course since I'm at home. So please check it out. Learn more. We have 2 open source online courses that are free, so you can start there. And if you want to go further, you can go further. And I hope I am able to play the video. Let's see how it works, because that's a very nice kind of final addition to why Hyperledger. Why are people using Hyperledger? So let's see. Oh, what did just happen? Okay, I don't think I can actually do this. So I will.
Martha, sorry to interrupt. Do you have a web link of that? Martha, you can open up the video in a web link on a different browser and then share your screen.
Yeah, I think I will finish up here and take questions if you have any questions. And the video will be included in the presentation, or it's available on our YouTube channel. So with that, I'm open to any questions you might have.
As of right now, I don't see any questions coming up. Guys, do you have any questions for Martha here? I think they will take some time to digest all the information which you have given them. And I believe this small session doesn't do justice to your expertise, but it was really very nice to have you. I think something has popped up. Just let me see. No, not yet. So, Martha, thank you very much for coming and being part of Blockjakarta here. As I told you before, this is the 4th edition going on here, and we have been instrumental in driving the blockchain process here within the community. And please do send us your presentation, and we will share it with the audience post-event. Thank you so much being a part of Blockjakarta 2020.
I do see a question, so I'm going to take the liberty of maybe answering one question. What do you think about another framework? I'm not sure I actually understand it. So, like Corda or Parity. Well, to be honest, I think that there is space and requirement for every DLT out there. If there is no need for it, then they wouldn't exist, or they would very quickly collapse, which we've seen as well, right? So I think that Corda and Parity, as well as Quorum, as well as so many other, are very important. Even if Corda is quite often not called not a real blockchain DLT because they are focused on slightly different things. It is very important. I mean, loads of banks are using it. It's just a different use case and a different filling a different need in this space. So yeah, I guess I didn't share my. I haven't shared my email. I can put it into the chat room if you decide that you have any questions or you want to dive deeper into the particular frameworks. I'm very happy to answer your questions. So I'll just type it into the chat now.
Okay, so everyone, it was a pleasure. And Martha, really the topic was interesting. I'm sure that we'll need a lot of time to go through all the topics what you have discussed. And we look forward to welcome you. Most probably the COVID will end and we're coming up with Block Bali in Bali. So it's a conference plus a holiday for everyone. And that's one of the events. Yes.
We will need that after the lockdown. We will.
And I'm sure Block Bali, we see a bigger participation of about people from 25, 30 countries coming in. So wow. It's a really great event and we look forward to invite you over there. So thank you from Indonesia. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for the last session of the day, the most interesting session from the person who is considered to be the #1 blockchain speaker in the world. You can check out his profile later in LinkedIn. Let me just change the settings to please follow us to the second room. We'll go for the last session now. Thank you.